Uranus. He doesn't move like the others. He spins on his side. He enters your life not with a knock, but with a jolt. He is the one who breaks the system and downloads a new code. Uranus is the great awakener, the electric breath of the cosmos, the truth you were not ready for, arriving anyway. In this episode, we explore Uranus not just as a planet, but as a living archetype, a force of rebellion, genius, and divine intervention. We will journey through his ancient myth, his unique role in astrology, his planetary partnerships, and how this cosmic wild card might just be the teacher your soul has been waiting for. Welcome everyone. Whether this is your first time tuning into the Forgotten Sky series, or you are returning to deeper your astrological journey, today we begin something special. I am your host, Genevieve. This is not just another podcast about current transits, but a timeless initiation into the nature of Uranus, one of the most mysterious, misunderstood, and electrifying archetypes in the entire cosmic pantheon. You see, dear one, while many people are familiar with Mercury, Venus, or Mars, even Saturn and Pluto, Uranus often remains in the shadows. And that's ironic because Uranus is the planet of awakening. He doesn't belong in the background, and he is here to interrupt, to spark, and to ignite. So in this episode, we slow down to look deeply. There are a few questions we can ask. Who is Uranus, mythologically and symbolically? What does it mean when this planet enters your life through transit or birth chart? Why does Uranus trigger such sudden, dramatic changes? And how do we respond with wisdom instead of fear? And finally, what is the spiritual purpose behind the chaos he brings? We will begin with his original myth, the ancient sky god who was overthrown by his son Saturn, and explore his role in astrology, not just as the planet of rebellion, but as a carrier of divine mind, cosmic frequency, and revolutionary vision. We will also examine how Uranus relates to Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus, especially Venus, as the two meet during Uranus' ingress into Gemini in July this year. That rare conjunction is not just a celestial event. It is a story of love meeting liberation, of beauty catching fire. We will also cover the astrological fact, because how Uranus moves through the heavens will reveal something essential about how his energy moves through our lives. And finally, I will walk you through Uranus in the 12th house, offering insight into what kind of awakening might unfold depending on where Uranus travels through your birth chart. This is a long-term influence, typically lasting 7 years in each sign, and it marks periods of personal evolution that are impossible to ignore. In this episode, it's not just tied to one date. You can return to it anytime Uranus is active in your life. When it makes a transit to your sun or moon, when it crosses your ascendant, or when it returns to its natal place at age 84, or simply when you feel a stirring in your soul that say, I can't do this the old way anymore. Because that's how Uranus works. He doesn't knock politely. He strikes like lightning, and he shows you what's false, not to punish, but to free. And he reminds you that truth isn't always comfortable, but it is liberating. So take a deep breath. This is not a forecast, but an initiation. We begin where the myth begins, with the sky itself. Let's present Uranus. Now, we start not with the stars, but with a story, one of the oldest, a myth that still pulses beneath every chart, every revolution, and every unexpected twist of fate. In the beginning, there was Gaia, the Mother Earth. She is fertile, grounding, alive with possibility. But she was incomplete without her counterpart. And from the vastness above, Uranus emerged. He wasn't just a god, he was the sky, infinite, stretching beyond the eye or the mind could grasp. He wrapped himself around Gaia each night, and from their union come the first generation of creation, the Titans, and the 100-hands ones. And here where the story bends. Uranus, though expansive and visionary, became afraid of what he has created. He feared the power of his children. So instead of letting them grow, he forced them back into Gaia's womb, into the hidden darkness of the earth. Imagine the sky pressing down on the earth, refusing the birth of the future. And so Gaia, suffering, turning to her son Cronus, whom we know as Saturn, he handed him a sickle. He rose up in the moment that would shape cosmic law. Saturn castrated his father Uranus, severed his reign and casting the sky god down. And from the blood of Uranus come a divine retribution. The form of his fall, something else emerged. Venus, the goddess of love. This is important. From Uranus' rapture come both vengeance and beauty, chaos and art, the storm and the heart. So what does this myth tell us? Uranus is the origin of creation, but not its controller. He is the spark, not the structure. He birthed potential, but cannot contain it. He is freedom, electrified it. He is the father of rebellion, not because he meant to be, but because his fear of the new ensured it. And so astrologically, Uranus becomes the planet of sudden change, disruption, revolution, and awakening. But let's not mistake disruption for destruction. Uranus doesn't break things for the sake of chaos. He breaks illusion. He breaks cages. He breaks cycles that no longer serve your evolution. In the birth chart, Uranus shows us where we are wired for freedom, where we will not, cannot, and must not conform, where we receive insight, not through study, but through shocks. So he is associated with the nervous system, lightning, technology, astrology itself, and the divine mind. not the rational mind, that Mercury domain, but the divine mind, the mind that received vision while walking in the forest, the mind that downloaded an idea that didn't come from you, but changed your life anyway. He doesn't care about comfort. He is not here for smooth journey or slow awakening. He is here for truth, for frequency, for a new consciousness that may look crazy at first, but makes perfect sense once the old system collapses. In fact, Uranus can be hard to live with. Those with strong Uranian placement in their birth chart often feel alien, ahead of their time, misunderstood. They may reject society or be rejected by it. But often they are here to see what society isn't ready for yet. They are the inventors, the disruptors, the visionaries, the ones who rewrite the future, often after walking alone through the present. So when Uranus moves through a sign, like he will from Gemini from 2025 to 2032, he brings that awakening energy into that sign's domain. For Gemini, this is about language, thought, communication, information, media, transportation, sibling relationships, duality, and nervous stimulation and movement. We will explore all that in depth very soon. But for now, what I want you to understand is that Uranus doesn't follow the script. He erases it. Because he doesn't whisper, he shocks. And if your life feels like it is falling apart under his gaze, it may actually be falling into alignment. In astrology, planets are never isolated. They are constantly dancing with each other, exchanging frequencies, reflecting different parts of the human psyche and spiritual evolution. To understand Uranus more fully, we need to see him in conversation with three other key planetary archetypes: Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus. Each of these relationships reveals a different fact of Uranus. One shows us his root, another his vision, and with Venus, his heart. Let's start with Saturn, because this is the most ancient and fundamental relationship. Mystically, Saturn or Kronos is the one who overthrew Uranus, and astrologically, they still represent two sides of the same coin, or rather, two forces pulling on the soul from opposite directions. While Saturn builds, it governs time, order, tradition, and structure. It is the inner voice that says, work hard, follow the rules, master this reality. But with Uranus, he breaks. He rules chaos, innovation, awakening, and revolution. This is the voice that says, forget the rules. You are here to reinvent the world. In psychological astrology, Saturn is the superego, the inner authority. Uranus is the liberator and inner rebel. Together, they create tensions in our lives. Do I stay where it is safe or to break free? Do I follow the path or blaze a new one? Do I maintain tradition or initiate a revolution? If you have a moment where something in your life fell apart, a job, a relationship, a belief system, and suddenly you could breathe again. That's Uranus freeing you from Saturn's cage. And here's the alchemy. We need both. Saturn gives form and Uranus gives vision. Saturn says, let's build it. Uranus says, but let's build it differently. So the heaviest society and individuals learn to honor both when they work together, especially in harmonious transit like a sextile or trine. They can bring real breakthroughs, innovations that last, freedom with foundation, change that matters. The next, we go on to look at Uranus and Jupiter, the visionary pair. Jupiter is known as the planet of expansion, of beliefs, philosophy, higher education, and yes, luck. Where Saturn says no and Uranus says why not, and Jupiter say yes, we do it. When Uranus and Jupiter align, whether in the sky or in our chart, something powerful happens. Ideas grow wings, revolutions gain momentum. One inspired thought can become a global movement. Historically, Uranus and Jupiter alignment have coincided with movements of social, political, and scientific liberation. Think about the last 18th century, when Uranus was discovered. That same decade gave us the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Enlightenment. All Jupiterian ideas electrified by Uranian disruption. In your personal chart, Jupiter represents what you believe, and Uranus questions whether you have really chosen those beliefs or inherit them unconsciously. Together they ask, do you beliefs expand your freedom or limit it? Are you willing to rewire your faith when truth knocks? They are the philosophers of the cosmos, but not the quiet kind. These two set fire to the library and ask you to rewrite your own sacred text. And now we look at Uranus and Venus, when love meets lightning. Now we arrive at the most tender, surprising, and timely dance of all. Because when Uranus enters Gemini in July 2025, he will be conjunct Venus, the planet of love, beauty, value, and desire. This is not casual. This is poetry. Let's unpack it. Venus, she rules romantic relationships, art and aesthetics, financial values, self-worth, what we are magnetized toward. Now imagine all of that meeting Uranus, the planet of sudden change, nonconformity, and awakening. And imagine it happening in Gemini, the sign of the mind, the voice, and duality. This conjunction brings sudden attraction, electric partnerships, new ways of loving, intellectually, spiritually, a revolution in how we define beauty, money, and worth. You might fall in love with someone completely unexpected, or fall out of love and realize it is the most loving things you have ever done, or feel pulled to radically express yourself through fashion, art, music, or speech. Uranus doesn't bring stability, he brings truth. And with Venus, that truth may arrive through heartbreak or through creative liberation. This isn't love at first sight. It is recognition as first shock. That magnetic jolt when someone says exactly what your soul has been whispering, and suddenly you remember who you are. And the fact that this conjunction happened on the exact ingress into Gemini, July the 7th, tell us that entire 7 years transit is seeded with this love rebellion frequency. So we are being asked, what do we really value? What ideas are we in love with? Can love itself be a revolutionary act? And he is the first planet ever discovered with a telescope. No one ever knew he existed until March 13 at 1781. That day is not just historical, it is very symbolic. Think about what was happening on Earth during those periods. The American Revolution was still unfolding. The French Revolution was beginning to rise. Science and reasons were challenging monarchy and religion. And the Age of Enlightenment was pushing humanity to think differently, speak freely, and break from the past. He brought with him the energy of revolution, rebellion, and radical new vision, not only for society, but for consciousness itself. That's why many astrologers say Uranus is the modern mind, the science mind, the intuitive mind, the mind that sees beyond what the eye can't see. And he takes 84 years to orbit the sun. That means it spent about 7 years in each zodiac sign. We each experience our first Uranus opposition around age 42, often coinciding with a sudden midlife awakening, career change, or personal reinvention. And if we live long enough, we receive our Uranus return around age 84, a moment of deep soul clarity, where some elders awaken even more than in youth. So Uranus moves slowly, but when it touches something in your chart, it acts suddenly. It is not about gradual change. It is about almost like a tipping point, a flash of insight that rewires everything. And he spent about 5 months a year in retrograde, appearing to move backward from our perspective on Earth. During this period, external change slows down, but internal rebellion intensifies. We might feel restless, irritated, or called to question everything, from our routines to our relationships to our purpose. So Uranus retrogrades are not passive. They are inner rewiring phase. They prepare you to break free once the planet moves direct. And here is where Uranus gets even stranger. Unlike every other planet in our solar system, Uranus spins on its side. Its axis tilts around 98 degrees, almost a full flip. Imagine a planet rolling like a barrel as it moves through space. This sideways spin is not just astronomy, it's symbolism in motion. That literally means the odd one out, the nonconformist, the inoculist, and the rebel. So people with strong Uranus placement, such as Uranus on their ascendant, conjunct the sun or moon, or prominent in the chart, often feel like they were born sideways into a world that expects straight lines. They are most probably the intuitives, scientists, inventors, astrologers, disruptors, or simply people who cannot and will not pretend to be normal. And So Uranus rules the nervous system. Uranus governs how we process stimulation, speed, signals, and shocks, both internal and external. It relates to anxiety, overstimulation, and mental download. He is electricity and lightning. Its energy is not emotional or physical. It is electric. That aha moment, that's Uranus, sudden realization. And he also rules the future of technology, AI, science fiction, the digital, the synthetic, the interconnected. He governs astrology itself as a system of cosmic pattern recognition. And he rules Aquarius. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius, the sign of the visionary, the humanitarian, the outsider who sees the world not as it is, but as it could be. And a few key words to describe Uranus would be like awakening, disruption, innovation, liberation, truth, frequency, independence, the unexpected. Now that we have met Uranus through myth, movement, and meaning, let's bring him into personal territory. Let's talk about what it means when Uranus shows up in your natal chart. Because while he might be an outer planet, slow-moving and generational, he can still leave an unmistakable signature on your personality, your path, and your life awakening process. Let's explore what Uranus brings to your personal experience, depending on which house he activates in your natal chart. In this next section, we will explore Uranus through the 12 houses, how this electric sky god awakens each area of life, from identity to career to the soul unconscious roots. We will explore what it means to have Uranus in each of the 12 houses of the birth chart. Explain not only the disruptions that might arise, but also the awakening potential, spiritual lessons, and integration path. And I advise you to listen to your ascendant first, then look at the sun sign and your moon sign, so how it affects your personality as well as your emotion consciousness. If you have Uranus in the first house, that is the awakening of the self, becoming the disruptor of your own identity. The first house in astrology governs one's physical body, personality, instinctual responses, and immediate way we present ourselves to the world. Now imagine Uranus, the planet of cosmic electricity, stationed here at the very front door of the chart. This placement is no small thing. It marks a life destined to challenge norms, to resist imposed roles, and to become the living embodiment of change itself. He sends a clear signal. You are not here to blend in. You are here to awaken others by first awakening yourself. This isn't something you try to do. It is not an attitude. It is an energetic presence. People feel it before you speak. And Uranus in the first can manifest in many ways. A striking appearance, unusual fashion, or physicality that defies expectations. A magnetic aura that feels both brilliant and hard to pin down. Or a tendency to be reactive or highly stimulated, especially in early years when the nervous system is still learning how to regulate its electricity. A deep inner need to define your own path, even if it means being misunderstood. You may resist uniforms, titles, or any system that tries to put you in a category. There is often a disdain for pretenders, a desire to be radically authentic, even if that means going against what is socially acceptable. With Uranus in the first, growth comes from rupture, from breaking away from identities that were never really yours. This could look like leaving a family tradition or cultural identity behind in order to find your truth, changing your name, appearance, of lifestyle more often than once, or experiencing shocks to the ego, events that shatter who you thought you were, only to reveal something more essential beneath. But they are a gift. Uranus in the first house brings extraordinary intuition and original thinking. You don't need someone to tell you what's coming. You often feel the shift before it happens. So your presence can liberate others just by being yourself. You give people permission to break the mold because you live outside of it. That's your quiet leadership. It doesn't demand authority. It generates permission through example. But this path can be very lonely, especially early in life. You may feel misunderstood by parents, teachers, or peers, like you don't belong anywhere, or prone to intense inner restlessness, even identity crisis, wondering if something wrong with me. There can also be rebellion for its own sake, a compulsion to go against the grain, even when cooperation might serve you better. This can lead to burnout, emotional whiplash, or an inability to build lasting foundations. Your growth path involves learning to embody freedom without rejecting connection. You are not here to be fixed, conformed, or diluted, but you are here to bring your truth into the world in a way others can feel, understand, and receive. Your mantra, I awaken the world by being unapologetically myself. My identity is not fixed. It is a living revolution. If you have Uranus in the second house, the liberation of values and resources. What is wealth when nothing owns you? The second house in astrology governs some of the most fundamental areas of human life, like money, resources, value, and self-worth. When Venus, the planet of disruption, is placed in the second house of your natal chart, the very concept of security is redefined. This is not a placement for a predictable financial life, nor it is a path of building comfort in traditional way. Instead, Uranus, he is saying, you will discover your worth by losing what you thought you need and claiming what no one can take from you. With this placement, your relationships to money, possessions, and income is rarely straightforward. You may earn money in unusual or erratic ways, experience sudden gains and just as sudden losses, change careers or income stream frequently, resist being financially dependent even when help is offered. So at its core, these placements teach you that true stability can't be built on anything outside of yourself. Not a job, a paycheck, not even the identity of being good with money. Your values and your sense of value are meant to be shaken until they are rooted in something unshakable. People with Uranus in their second house often undergo radical shift in what they believe is valuable. Early in life, you may have been taught to value material wealth, status, beauty, or social acceptance. But at some point, often through a destabilizing event like job loss, financial betrayal, or spiritual awakening, those values crack open. With this emerged a desire to live by ethical, soul-aligned, and minimalist values. Attraction to alternative economies, barter, cryptocurrency, community support models, creative entrepreneurship, or a rejection of consumerism or inherited value systems. And so Uranus doesn't make the second house easy. The nervous system can also become tied to survival issues. You might experience anxiety around not having enough, even when you do. Disdain for routine, even if it could bring security. A sense of guilt or discomfort when things feel too easy, because you are used to earning your freedom through disruption. Here is where Uranus bring brilliance. You are here to disrupt outdated economy system, not just in society, but in your own life. In doing so, you offer others a glimpse of what true abundance looks like when it flows from authenticity. So this placement asks a core questions. What would you be worth if you lost everything you owned? It is not a threat, but an invitation. You are here to know yourself as a sovereign, not because you have money, but because money no longer defines you. Because what Uranus teaches in the second house is freedom, is your wealth. And once you trust that, everything else becomes a resource, not a chain. The mantra for you is I am the source of my own abundance. My worth is not earned, it is awakened. Uranus in the third house, revolutionary mind, thinking outside the line, speaking from the future. The third house governs the realm of mind, communication, learning, siblings, and neighbors. It represents how we process the world around us, how we speak, think, write, and relate to the immediate environment. When Uranus enters this house in your natal chart, the mental landscape is wired differently. This is the placement of the innovator, the disruptive thinker, the one whose mind doesn't just think outside the box, he lives beyond it. People with Uranus in the third house are often lightning thinkers. They are fast, abstract, intuitive, and often years ahead of the others. Ideas come suddenly, words arrive unfiltered, and insights are downloaded in flashes rather than built step by step. You may speak in bursts of inspiration or non-linear streams. Love to explore strange topics, quantum mechanics, metaphysics, AI, astrology, ETs, or hidden history. A constant shift interest. 1 week obsessed with neuroscience and the next with mystic poetry. You prefer learning independently or through non-traditional means, such as podcasts, going down the rabbit hole, or visionary download. Traditional education system might have failed you, bored you to death, and even unable to meet your level of creative intelligence. Uranus here disrupt the normal ways of thinking, and that can feel like both superpower and a burden, especially if you've never been mirrored or validated on how you learn. When balanced and expressed clearly, this placement offer brilliant communication abilities. You may be a visionary speaker or unconventional writer. You might have developed your own unique style of expression, using humor, symbols, or visuals, or multi-dimensional language. You could be drawn to social media, podcasting, or teaching in original ways. Thrived in fields like journalism, broadcasting, content creation, or language innovation. You can also be an influencer of thought, someone who introduces people to ideas they never considered, challenge collective assumptions, or present complex truths in digestible flashes. With Uranus in the third house, the nervous system is directly linked to thought. This means overthinking is often a coping mechanism. Sudden anxiety can strike, especially when overwhelmed by information. Mental restlessness may lead to insomnia, racing thought, or difficulty with following through. There might also be a tendency to detach from emotion, especially in conversation. You might speak logically about things that others feel deeply, not out of coldness, but because your mind processes faster than your heart. Another challenge lies in speaking too soon, too bluntly, or too prophetically for others to digest. You may be misunderstood, misquoted, or dismissed, not because you are wrong, because you are too early. Your challenge is to grant your mental genius, to channel your insight in ways others can understand without dumbing yourself down or fracturing your attention. That's mean learning how to filter information through presence, not just speed. Practicing mindful communication, saying what matters, not just what's loud. Trusting that even if your ideas feel too out there now, their time will come. You are here to speak not just for yourself, but for the collective mind that's waking up. You are a conduit of cosmic intelligence, but you must learn when to ground, when to pause, how to translate lightning into language. A mantra for you. My mind is a transmitter of higher truth. I honor its brilliance by learning when to speak and when to listen to the silence between signals. With Uranus in the fourth house, that is shaking the root, revolution at home, and the awakening of the inner child. The fourth house in astrology represents our emotional foundation, ancestral lineage, home life, and the core of our private life. It is not what we show the world, but who we are behind the scenes. When Uranus, the planet of liberation, disruption, live in this deeply personal house, it brings an unpredictable force into the roots of our being. This is the placement of ancestral change agents, the one born into a lineage, not to repeat it, but to break it open. Uranus in the fourth house often corresponds to a non-traditional or unstable childhood. Your early home environment may have been marked by frequent moves or geographic uprooting, divorce, absentee parents, or sudden family separations. A family dynamic that felt chaotic, cold, or emotionally unpredictable. You might have felt like the outsider in your own family, either intellectually different, emotionally detached, or simply not like them. Even if you were loved, the energy of Uranus here suggests that your early years taught you home is not a place you can count on. that can create an early identity rooted in self-reliance, emotional distance, or rebellion. You might have vowed silently, "I will never depend on anyone again." But here's the paradox. Uranus doesn't just disrupt your early home life, it awakens it. This placement often calls for deep inner child healing, because beneath the detachment and the cold self-sufficiency is a child who still wants to feel safe, held, and at peace. You are being asked over time to unravel the unconscious beliefs inherited from your family or ancestors, to reclaim emotional safety, not by building walls, but by choosing authenticity, to liberate yourself from emotional conditioning, inherited trauma, or family expectation. This is not a surface process. Uranus in the fourth demands emotional revolution, not just outward rebellion, but internal rewriting of your story. You may resist the idea of a forever home, or feel deeply uncomfortable in conventional domestic roles, but that doesn't mean you aren't meant to create home. It just means your version of home must feel free, alive, and self-defined. Some Uranus fourth house individuals become interior designers, energy clearers, or home healers, helping others reimagine what a sanctuary can be. The challenge of this placement is that it can cut you off from your own emotional path. This can create a kind of spiritual homelessness, where you feel that no matter where you are, you never fully settle. But what Uranus is teaching you is your home is not where you are. It is who you are becoming. The deeper your emotional authenticity, the more at home you will feel, no matter what your address says. So with Uranus in the fourth house, often marks someone who is clearing karmic contracts for the entire family line. You may be the first to leave home, the first to question religions, politics, or tradition, and the one who says, "The cycle ends with me." This is not a burden, but a sacred mission. By choosing to live differently, to feel differently, and to parent differently, you alter the future of your descendant, whether biological or energetic. You are the lightning bolt that changes the three directions. The mantra for you: I am not bound by the past. I carry the freedom to create a new foundation, one where truth, emotion, and spirit live in harmony. Uranus in the fifth house, that is the creative wildfire, the art of being unapologetically yourself. The fifth house is the realm of creativity, self-expressions, romance, joy, children, and the inner artist. That's where we play and to follow the bliss of our spirit. When Uranus, the cosmic awakener, the outsider, lands here, that joyful fire becomes unpredictable, electric, and utterly original. This is not a placement of cautious expression, but for the performer who shocks, who the lover who liberates, and the artist who channels lightning. You are not here to follow trends, but to set them and then break them the moment they become stale. You might have a fiercely individual creative style, one that doesn't fit into mainstream categories. You might fall in love with intensity and speed, and just as quickly fall out. To express yourself through bold color, electric art, radical fashion, or experimental performance. And whether or not you identify as an artist, Uranus here, you were born to create, not to replicate, but to out-originate. The fifth house rules romantic love, not marriage necessarily, but attraction, courtship, and heart-based desire. So love is unpredictable, unconventional, and often catalytic. You may experience sudden infatuations, attract partners who are eccentric, unavailable, or crave freedom in romance, needing space even when deeply enough. But beneath all that is a deeper longing to be seen fully without needing to shrink or compromise. So Uranus in the fifth house doesn't fear intimacy, it fears conformity. You will need a partner who can love your wildness, not just tolerate it. And when the inner artist awakens, creativity is often non-linear with this placement. This can bring frustration in structural systems, but once you learn to ride the creative wave, your artistry becomes magnetic. You may also be drawn to new media, tech art hybrid, astrology, AI art, futuristic design, or visionary storytelling. Anything that bends the rules of time, space, or genre will feel like home. And the fifth also rules children, both literal and symbolic. With Uranus here, your relationship with children is deeply karmic and potentially unconventional. You may even choose not to have children. You may be a teacher or mentor to the next generation of different kids. This placement marks someone who passes on a legacy of awakening through creativity, someone whose very self-expression becomes a lighthouse for others. But there may also be pain linked to early experience of not being allowed to shine, when creativity was shamed, minimized, or hijacked by someone else's control. Healing comes when you stop performing for reaction and start expressing for liberation. Your presence is permission. And the mantra for you: I express without apology. My joy is a revolution. My creativity is not a performance. It is a pulse from the cosmos. With Uranus in the sixth house, the revolutionary routines, freedom through service, innovation through ritual. The sixth house governs day-to-day rhythm of life, our work habits, service to others, and the house of ritual, refinement, and reputation. And with Uranus here, the planet of unpredictability, freedom, and disruption, you are not here to do the 9-to-5 job. You are not here to follow someone else's list. You are here to reinvent what it means to work, to serve, to care for the body, and to honor time. With Uranus in this house, your relationship with daily structure is often inconsistent or occasionally chaotic. You may resist schedules, change jobs frequently, thrive in unusual work environment, and you feel that your work must serve a higher cause, not just for a paycheck. You are likely an innovator in your profession, someone who sees better systems, faster processes, or radical different ways of achieving productivity. But the challenge is consistency. Uranus doesn't follow the clock. It follows intuition, inspiration, and energy surge, which means that traditional work-life balance may feel foreign to you. In a soul sense, you may ask, how do I contribute to something greater than myself? But you must do it in your own way. Even if you are inside an organization, you will likely push against its rules. You need space to think, to breathe, and to move freely. This placement is common among freelancers, digital nomads, programmers, healers who blend science with mythicism, and reformers within healthcare, education, or public system. But because sixth house also rules health, Uranus here often affects the nervous system. Traditional health regimens may not work for you. You need flexible, intuitive, and highly frequency approach. Sometimes illness or burnout becomes the very awakening, forcing you to change your relationship to work, rest, and embodiment. But the shadow of Uranus in the sixth house is the tendency to start things without finishing them. But the paradox is, sixth house isn't just about discipline, it is about ritual. And Uranus doesn't hate ritual, it hates mindless repetition. So your task is to find the rituals of liberation, small intentional practices, and set your energy free. That's not the right way, only your way. At its highest, Uranus makes you a disruptor of a broken system. You don't just work within structure, you redesign them. Or you find better ways, smarter paths, more humane methods. And you bring those questions into the world through design, technology, healing, coaching, art, or quiet revolution. The mantra for you, I serve through innovation. My rituals are electric. My work becomes sacred when I stop following rules that don't serve the future. Uranus in the seventh house, the electric relationships, love that breaks you open, not down. The seventh house governs one-to-one relationship, either romantic partners, close collaborations, business contract, or soul bond. It is the house of mirroring, where we meet the other and through them discover ourselves. With Uranus here, relationships become the primary stage of transformation. It is not the placement for predictable partnership. It is not about happily ever after in the conventional sense, but relationships that break patterns, unlock freedom, and teach radical truth through connection. Your relationships likely follow a different rhythm than the normal. You might be drawn to unconventional partners, sudden beginnings and endings in love or business partnership. You crave closeness and independence at the same time. Or you attract people who are rebels, change makers, or emotionally unavailable. Your souls want awakening through relationship, which means you can't settle for a safe, stagnant, or socially approved unions. You are here to break the mold of what partnerships should look like. So to co-create something that is alive, evolving, and free. This placement can bring extraordinary teachers into your life, partners who trigger awakening, even if it comes through disruption. When you are aligned, Uranus in the 7th house allow you to love without ownership, to commit without possession, and to evolve through mutual freedom. These partnerships are less about fusion, but more about interdependence. Two sovereign beings choosing, not clinging. But the shadow side of it is a fear of commitment. The patterns of attracting emotionally unavailable, sabotaging closeness. So there may also be a deep wound around feeling unchosen, or always being too much, too different to be loved. Yet the irony is that your soul doesn't want ordinary love. It longs for something cosmic, Catholic, and evolution driven. But to receive that, you must be willing to stay present when love gets real. Here, Uranus might bring sudden shift in relationship, forming or breaking contract rapidly, non-traditional collaboration, a calling to work with visionaries, creatives, or those outside the mainstream. You might thrive in partnership where the energy flows quickly and the structure is fluid, especially when the goal is transformation, not control. So your soul lesson is not to reject relationship, but to redefine it. You are here to forge a new kind of relationship template, one where truth is more important than tradition, and evolution is the shared goal. The mantra for you, I awaken through connection. Love is not my cage, it is my catalyst. Uranus in the 8th house, the electric intimacy, radical transformation, taboo liberation, and soul level rebirth. The 8th house is the underworld of birth chart. It governs intimacy, merging sexual energy, shared resources, inheritance, and mysteries of death and rebirth. This house doesn't deal with surface level life. When Uranus here, the planet of disruption, the soul is wired for profound transformation. But that transformation will never be linear or predictable. It arises through shocks, ruptures, revolutions, and a deep energetic opening. This is one of the most spiritual charged Uranus placement, and also one of the most challenging. Uranus in the 8th house often signals a soul that has incarnated to liberate the darker layers of the psyche, the collective taboos, and the energetic contract that bind others in fear or control. You may have sudden shift in share finance, investment, or inheritance. An unconditional approach to sex, intimacy, or monogamy. Encounters with death, loss, or psychic phenomena at a young age. A magnet draw towards the occult, trauma healing, or deep shadow work. You may walk through emotional earthquakes that feel like soul-level deconstruction, not because you are broken, but because you are built for metamorphosis. At its highest frequency, you may become a guide for others through their darkest hours, not by fixing them, but by holding up a mirror of truth, integrity, and non-attachment. Your presence often awakens the suppressed energy in others. You may not even try, but people feel different around you. They become more honest, more exposed, and raw. You are not here for shadow connections. You are here for the truth, even if it shakes the ground. And the shadow side of this placement can express as a fear of emotional vulnerability, trauma around shared finance, and a tendency to rebel against intimacy that moment it gets too real. You may carry ancestral wounds or karmic memories around betrayal, abuse, or power imbalances. Uranus in the 8th house might act as a disruptor of generational trauma, even if it causes chaos before clarity. And sexuality under Uranus is not about pleasure alone, it is about frequency. And this placement can bring sudden awakening of Kundalini or interest in Tantra, sacred sexuality, a refusal to conform to traditional sexual norms, and a need for intellectual stimulation and energetic alignment in order to feel sexually connected. You are not looking for just a lover. You are looking for a cosmic mirror, someone who can meet you in the void and reflect you back to yourself, transformed. Because 8th house also rules share wealth, you may reject financial dependency or swing between extremes of control and surrender. But ultimately, this placement is about energetic empowerment. Here, he teaches you, you are not here to be controlled, nor to control the others. You are here to merge consciously and or not at all. So your soul come here to walk through fire, not to be burned, but to become lightning. You don't need to avoid intensity. You are meant to carry it, not as trauma, but as transformation. A mantra for you. I am the frequency of transformation. I meet darkness with electricity. I love from the soul, not the wound. If you have Uranus in the 9th house, that is the radical truth seeker, liberating the mind through philosophy, travel, and cosmic perspectives. The 9th house is about higher education, spiritual philosophy, belief system, or long-distance travel. The search for meaning. And Uranus here brings a fierce and unrelenting drive to know the truth, but not the kind that written in old books. Uranus here seeks truth that disrupt, liberate, and radically reorients the mind. You are not just a student of life. You are a cosmic dissenter, born to question dogma, unlearn inherited beliefs, and inspire others to think in ways they have never dared. This placement indicates a highly original, often rebellious approach to knowledge. You may reject traditional education systems or religious institutions, feel magnetically drawn to foreign cultures, indigenous wisdom, experience sudden changes in worldview. There is an untamable quality to your mind. You just don't want to learn. You want to deconstruct, innovate, and rebuild the entire framework of beliefs. You may have gone through spiritual awakening, dark night of the soul, or intellectual revolution that left your old life behind. But for you, this is normal and necessary. Uranus in the ninth house often correspond to sudden opportunity to travel or relocate far from your origins, a restless craving for expansion and interruption in your formal education. And yet you are profoundly educational. You might become a teacher of the taboo, a thought leader in alternative systems, a digital nomad, online philosopher, or a truth teller whose words awaken others. You just don't travel for experience. You travel to awaken memory, or who you are across lifetimes, across dimensions. Travel for you is a kind of soul alchemy. At its best, this placement brings brilliant insight into spiritual system and radical global perspectives that unite cultures. And you have the courage to speak truth that challenge power. So you don't just explore ideas, you live them. And your passion for freedom is contagious. But with Uranus in here, you mistake novelty for truth, or become so contrarian that you reject structure altogether. You become intolerant of other people's beliefs. You might also go through intense spiritual crises, moments when everything you believe fall apart. But these moments are initiations. Uranus is not here to strip you bare without purpose. He breaks your mental shackles so you can fly again, not escape. You are here to think in alignment with your soul, not your programming. That means letting go of inherited beliefs and allowing your inner noxus to replace external authority, using your voice, writing, or teaching as a channel for cosmic consciousness. Here, Uranus is saying, you are the prophet, not the disciple. The mantra for you is, I think light lightning. My truth is not inherited, it is awakened. I walk the edges of meaning to bring back sparks for the collectives. Uranus in the 10th house, the revolutionary role, awaken the collective through career, visibility, and social mission. The 10th house is the highest point in a birth chart. Your personal path becomes visible to the world. It governs career, public image, authority, and the impact you leave on society. With Uranus here, your mission is not to climb the existing ladder, it is to rebuild the ladder itself. This is the placement of the visionary professional, the social reformer, the public rebel, and often the reluctant leader who end up revolutionizing their field not by following, but by breaking away. Often you have non-linear, unexpected, or innovative career path. You may feel driven to pursue a mission, change career multiple times, or struggle in hierarchies where your voice isn't heard. Attract public attention for being unique, controversial. You are not here for success as defined by the mainstream. You are here to challenge what success ever means, and in doing so, become a mirror for others to question their own goals. You may resist being told what to do, especially by employers, institutions. This resistance isn't about immaturity, but soul integrity. You know, on a deep level, that your work must be aligned with your truth, or it is not sustainable. So your public path may involve exposing truth, disrupting outdated industry, or teaching a new paradigm through your visibility. People may look up to you for guidance, even if you don't consider yourself a leader. This is because Uranus in the 10th radiates future energy. You represent what's next, not what's safe. The 10th house is a pressure point. You might have a sense of being watched or a fear of success, feeling like you don't fit in. Sometimes your public image can shift suddenly, by choice or by circumstances. But these shifts are not punishment, they are soul redirections. Remember, Uranus doesn't destroy unless a better version of you is waiting to emerge. At its highest frequency, Uranus makes you a cultural innovator, a mentor for emerging consciousness. Your very presence in the public sphere is a challenge to the status quo, but also an invitation. You are showing people a new way to live, work, serve, and lead. Your work carries the code of liberation. That is your brand and your message. The 10th house is also associated with father figure. So you may have a parent who was eccentric, absent, or radically non-traditional. You decide early on, I will never let anyone control my future. And this early tension often becomes the catalyst for craving your own path. But it might also require healing your relationship with authority, especially if rebellion becomes a defense system. You are not just here to be different, but to be impactful. Your task is to embrace visibility without compromise. Teach by living your truth, not preaching it. Your legacy won't be status. It would be the freedom you awaken in others just by walking your path. Mantra for you. I lived through liberation. My legacy is not approval. It is awakening. With Uranus in the 11th house, the cosmic network, breaking the mold of belonging and channeling the future through community. The 11th house is about friendship, community, social network, and long-term vision. It is the realm of shared ideas, future dreams. With Uranus here, we find someone whose entire orientation to society is from the outside in. You don't just join groups, you disrupt them. You don't follow vision, you invent them. This is the signature of a social visionary, the community outliner, and the networking genius who doesn't play by the rules of belonging. With Uranus here, you were born to interface with the collectives in an unexpected and evolutionary way. You may be deeply connected to the future of humanity. Form a led new type of communities. Experience sudden shift in social circles. You are not here to be popular, but you are here to be aligned. You are rather be alone than in a room that silences your truth. At its best, Uranus in the 11th house grand technological genius in social platform, group influence that sparks awakening, the power to attract your soul tribe. You are the antenna, tuning into future waves and transmitting them to those ready to receive, whether through art, activism, entrepreneurship, or exoteric community building. You know how to bring people together around a frequency, not a format. But the shadow side of this placement can feel like being chronically misunderstood in group setting, or a deep wound of not knowing where you belong. But Uranus here doesn't want you to fit in. It wants you to build the space you never found, to create new containers, to gather others on the fringe and say, this is our frequency. It is not about social comfort, but conscious resonance. 11th house rules our hope, dream, and future vision. And with Uranus here, you may receive future downloads spontaneously. Your soul purpose may involve collective healing, innovation, or liberation. You carry blueprint for things that don't yet exist, new models for community, education, finance, healing, or technology. It is your job to believe in those visions even when others don't. In the 11th house, teach us that community doesn't mean conformity. And Uranus in the 11th, he is whispering, find your people by being your real self. Lead the future by living it now. And the mantra for you, I belong where truth is welcome. I gather the future through community. My presence sparks awakening, even when I stand alone. If you have Uranus in the 12th house, the electric unconscious, awakening the mystic, dissolving the illusion, and channeling the divine mind. The 12th house governs the unconscious, dreams, spirituality, past life, karma, divine union, and the hidden realms of the psyche. It is not where we build, but where we dissolve, not where we strive, but where we surrender. With Uranus here, the planet of sudden insight and quantum awakening, he is the energy that's not immediately obvious. It doesn't flash across the surface of your life. It vibrates behind the veil, quietly but persistently reshaping your spiritual DNA. This is the placement of the mystic hacker, the psychic scientist, the cosmic dreamer who receives transmission from the beyond. With Uranus here, your connection to truth does not come through study or action. It comes through revelation. You may experience certain intuitive flashes or prophetic dream, feel like an antenna for collective energy and a very rich inner world. There's often a sense of living between worlds, one foot in the material plane, one foot in the unseen. You might not know how to explain this to others or even to yourself, but that doesn't make it less real. Uranus here activates the collective unconscious. You are wired into the field and you may receive messages that aren't yours from ancestors, future selves, dream archetypes, or what some would call the Akashic record. This can bring spontaneous healing, a strong connection to astrology, quantum theory, multidimensional framework. This is a deeply spiritual placement, but not always an easy one. The 12th house also rules retreat, isolation, and the hidden self. You may crave solitude suddenly and intensely, resist structured spiritual system, preferring a direct connection to source. Uranus here awakened through silence, dreams, and unpredictable spiritual opening. You may have awakening through near-death experiences or journey in deep crisis, but always you return with a new frequencies for others. But because Uranus works through the unconscious, the challenge is integration. You may struggle to explain your experience, carry ancestral trauma or collective burden in your nervous system, feeling disconnected from reality or differenced in ways that can't be named. But these experiences are not pathology. They are passages. You are not broken. You are plugged into a deeper current. At its highest, that is a channel for divine frequency, a healer, or a dreamer's vision keeper, someone who carries future code not in speech but in presence. You might touch lives without trying. People feel something shift just by being near you. A calm clarity, a reordering. You didn't speak it, but you transmit it. Your surface is often quiet, subtle, and invisible. You walk between worlds and you carry the light of both. So you are here to reclaim your spiritual gift, to release the need for outer recognition. Learn that you do not need proof to validate your truth. You are awakening not through the intellect, but through direct communion with the infinite. Mantra for you. I awaken in silence. I trust the unseen. I am the quiet current that carries the future through my soul.